On Millwater's property in Manistus Ridge, west of Ellensburg, Washington, there's a hole in the ground that looks like a well, but it's not. The previous owners used it as a trash dump, but Mel noticed something strange about it. His dogs wouldn't go near it. It caused his radio to pick up strange signals, and it seemed to have no bottom. Join us on this journey as we unravel the secrets of Mel's Hole. In 1997, Art Bell, who hosted Coast to Coast AM, a widely listened to radio program that explored strange events and inexplicable phenomena, received a fax from a person named Mel Waters. Mel wrote a yard about a strange hole in his land in Manistash, Washington, whose origin was unknown. Mel claimed that the hole was bottomless and scared the wildlife so badly that birds never flew over it. Soon after, Art Bell extended an invitation to Mel to appear on his radio show, where Mel introduced to the world what would become one of the most famous mysteries of the 21st century. Mel's Hole in his phone interview from Ellensburg, Washington, located about 80 miles from his property. Mel disclosed that he'd bought the Manistash property a few years earlier and the hole had always been there. According to Mel, everyone in the area, including his neighbors, was well aware of the hole's existence and would regularly dump garbage in it. They dropped broken heavy machinery, trash rocks, and in one instance, even a dead dog. Mel went on to narrate a curious story about a neighbor who had a dog that died. Rather than burying the pet, Mel's neighbor decided to use the hole as a grave for his dog and promptly threw it. And a few days later, the hunter saw his trusty dog Riders rain trotting through the woods. Mel's neighbor stated that the dog, though unharmed, never responded to his call or whistles and raced along like it was on the hunt, and he was sure that it was his dog because he recognized the collar. It was apparent that Mel's hole was more than just a hole. It was a round well-like pit, a little over 9 feet across, with a stone retaining wall on the sides and extending down a few feet before dropping off to dirt. The insides were pitch black and the depth was unfathomable. Decided to measure the depth by dropping heavy tools into the hole and not hearing a splash or thud. Curious, he tied a couple of Lifesavers candies to the end of a fishing line and lowered it into the hole. If the candies dissolved, there would be water at the end. Mel's line finished after 500 feet, and he drew up the fishing line. The candy was whole. He then bought several spools of fishing line and title. LED weight to them. Slowly, he lowered the cable into the hole. Spool after spool after spool. Yet nothing happened. The hole just kept eating the line. After a while, Mel stopped and discovered that he'd lowered about 80,000 feet of line into the hole, a little over 15 miles of rope. Yet he hadn't reached the end. The hole had no end. Mel contacted Art to help him mark the pit's depth. Since he was clearly out of his depth, Art suggested that they lower a volunteer down the hole with pulleys. But Mel was skeptical about this idea. He explained that the mysterious occurrences near the pit might harm any volunteers. Toxic gases could be present, and the pressure from the surrounding earth could crush whoever went in. Mel refused. Even though a caller volunteered, he didn't want to be responsible for whatever happened to anyone who dared enter the bottomless pit. Surprisingly, Mel admitted that he would jump into the pit if diagnosed with a life-threatening illness. He believes the pit has unknown powers that could rejuvenate him. The call continued into the night, with people calling in to explain this strange occurrence. Mel's Hole was the night's topic and would remain a coast-to-coast topic for years to come. In a second fax to the radio show, just 4 days after the talk, Mel informed Art that exactly the day after the broadcast, he had returned to his property in Manistash. On his return, he found that the road to his property was blocked by armed military personnel, which prevented him from entering the property. It was a shock to Mel Waters, who couldn't understand why the military would be on his land. They'd claimed that a plane had crashed there, but Mel hadn't seen any smoke or debris near the site. Instead, he saw men in yellow gear, probably hazmat suits, moving around the land. Mel asked to speak to someone in charge, but they gave him the same story. They suddenly threatened him, implying that the land was not necessarily Mel's property and that they could easily find a drug lab on it. Now, Mel was not going to take this lying down. He said he would go to the press, but the uniformed man scoffed and dared him to explaining that nobody would believe it anyway. Mel also had some interesting information about the hole on his property. He had seen a beam of solid black coming out of the hole, like a searchlight reaching into the sky. It seemed to have no end and sucked in the light around it. Now this prompted Art Bell to invite Mel to a second call on the show, and during the show, Mel revealed that he'd received a message from his real estate agent indicating that someone was interested in buying his property, although there was no offer yet. His agent assured him that it would be juicy. Mel also talked about an older man who had told him that the hole once had stone columns around it, similar to Stonehenge. Now this suggested that the hole was much older than anyone had imagined, perhaps even existing since time immemorial. Another caller noted that Mel's property was adjacent to the Yakima Training Center, a government facility which explained the swift military interference. But before the end of the call, the audience warned Mel to be careful, since the area was a well-known site for UFO sightings and weird occurrences. Now they were interested in Mel's story and hoped he'd be back. But little did they know that Mel wouldn't be back, at least not until 3 years later. For over 3 years, there was no news of Mel. It seemed like he had dropped off the face of the earth. However, in 2002, Art Bell finally tracked him down and brought him back onto the show. He made Mel recount a story about the hole checking to see if you remember the facts Mel did remember, and went on to divulge a crazy secret. Mel had been offered $250,000 a month for a perpetual lease on the property. All he had to do was take the money, never talk about the pit, and relocate. Mel took the money, of course, and immigrated to Australia when Art Bell asked why he never showed up again on the show or even called in from Australia. Mel narrated a chilling story in December 1999. When he was to appear on the show, he tried to help his nephew move into an apartment in the Olympia area after returning some moving truck to Tacoma. Mel had to catch a bus back down to Olympia. That's when the strangest thing happened. Their bus got pulled over by transit authorities due to an altercation on board after being led onto a second bus with other passengers. This was the last thing Mel remembered. Days later, Mel found himself in a dirt alley in San Francisco with his personal effects missing and an IV tape in his arm to make matters worse. His molars were removed. While he was unconscious, desperate, and alone, Mel contacted his nephew for help, who arranged for a ticket back to Olympia upon his return. Mel discovered that his ex-wife, the owner of the property, was suing him for violating the terms of his original lease. The accusations included the construction of an underground fuel system, a septic tank, and paved roads, which Mel denied. What was most intriguing about Mel's story was the mysterious dime that played a significant role. Mel had 10 homemade belt buckles, each one made out of bent fork stones and coins found around the site. He had made 10 of these buckles, with 10 Roosevelt dimes found in a mysterious red Chinese lucky money envelope. After he woke up in San Francisco, Mel noticed that his belt buckle was missing. He traced one of the men whom he had sold his custom belt to and discovered that the dime was produced in 1943, despite the fact that there were no dimes with Roosevelt's portrait in 1943. Furthermore, each American coin bears a letter indicating the place where it was manufactured. This time bore the letter Ben, despite no city in the history of U.S. currency. Minting ever beginning with the letter B. It was very unusual, and they sent it to a coin expert to have it appraised. A few days later, the expert claimed that the Treasury Department had confiscated the coin from him, Richard C. Hoagland, a hyperdimensionalist physicist. Theorist and famous alien researcher later suggested that the coins may have originated from a parallel universe, if these coins found near Mel's hole came from another parallel universe. Does that mean that the hole is some sort of interdimensional portal? And if so, are there other bottomless holes around the planet that function in the same way? An astonishing fact about Mel's hole is a claim that it has the ability to bend and distort time. According to some reports, time appears to slow down or speed up when you're near the hole. And some individuals have even reported experiencing time loops or time travel while in the vicinity of the hole, one of the most notable stories of time. Distortion at Mel's Hole comes from a man named Phil Bailey, who claimed to have lost 5 hours of time while exploring the area around the hole. Bailey and his friend had been hiking in the area and came across Mel's Hole, which they decided to investigate as he approached the hole. Bailey claims that he suddenly felt dizzy and disoriented, and the next thing he knew, it was 5 hours later, and his friend was frantically searching for him. Bailey's story is just one of many accounts of time. Distortion associated with Mel's Hole. Some individuals have claimed to have seen the future or past events while near Mel's Hole, while others have reported losing track of time altogether with the fame Mel's Hole received. A group of Native Americans in Nevada heard Mel on a program and invited him via email to the reservation to discuss a strange pit that dated back to the 1800s. It was located in an old town with many Basque settlers in the area. The Basques are a small and mostly isolated ethnic group. From a small region in Europe, they reared sheep in Nevada and considered the hole to be a holy ground, like Mel's Hole. This hole was 9 feet wide, only with a metal collar around it, and a notch on the top. The metal was warm to the touch and made no noise. When struck, the villagers noted that the animals were also afraid of this hole melon. The villagers decided to try several tests on the well. They wondered what would happen if a living being descended into the depths of the hole. To satisfy the curiosity, they decided to lower a sheep into the pit. Just like Mel's experience, the sheep went crazy before it was even lowered down, kicking and fighting against the hands lowering it into the hole. Eventually, the villagers knocked the sheep out and dropped it into the hole. About halfway in, the sheep woke up and let out a terrifying scream that continued for a while before stopping. The villagers quickly retrieved the sheep, but Mel saw that it was dead, and the cause of death was unknown over the years. Mel's Hole has remained an unsolved mystery that has perplexed many people. Several theories have been put forth to explain the strange occurrences in the hole, but none seem to capture the full essence of the phenomenon. The first theory was that Mel's Hole was a volcanic cave. Volcanic caves are formed from the courses of lava rivers that once flowed from volcanic vents or fissures. Lava tubes, the longest and most complex form of lava caves, are created by flowing lava near the land surface, while the state of Washington rests on a highly active volcanic hotspot, and it's possible that Mel's Hole was a resilient lava tube formed thousands of years ago. This theory does not explain all the strange occurrences in the hole. The second theory is connected to the hollow earth theory, which suggests that the Earth is hollow below a layer of rock. This theory proposes that Mel's Hole led to the empty interior of the planet, which explains why the fishing line and items tossed in never seem to hit the bottom, while there is a whole documentary supporting this theory. It remains controversial and unsupported by mainstream science. Another theory suggests that Mel's Hole was a top-secret government project. The fact that the pit was located near the Yakima Training Center made the story plausible. However, it's unclear why the government would allow people to discover and use the hole as a garbage disposal unit for so many years. On December 20th, 2002, Mel Waters appeared on Coast to Coast AM for the last time, where he shared the most shocking story of all. He claimed that the Native Americans near the second hole were communicating with some kind of interdimensional creature that used the hole for communication. According to Mel, the creature was capable of traveling through worlds and warned of the use of weapons using the power of 2 holes. It warned that if we harnessed the power for military purposes, we would destroy ourselves. It said that other beings in other planets were waiting for a destruction so they could come in and resettle on our planet. After this broadcast, Mel Waters disappeared without a trace, and the true location of Mel's Hole remained a mystery. The hole became shrouded in an even deeper layer of mystery and conspiracy, with questions about what exactly it was and its purpose. Was it a top-secret military project, a time travel gate, or a portal to an alternate dimension, like the wormholes of quantum physics, these questions remain unanswered and may never be answered in our time, especially since all records of Mill Waters and the hole may have been erased from history. Mel's inability to give concrete photographic evidence also contributes to the mystery around this phenomenon. However, it's worth noting that the lack of photographic evidence does not necessarily disprove the existence of Mel's hole or the strange occurrences that reportedly took place there. Mel's hole has maintained a consistent level of interest since its initial mention on the radio show. Many years ago, this urban legend has continued to intrigue many people with various online chat groups. Having discussed the topic in 2005, the discussion was active on Above Top Secret, and in 2007 it shifted to the Sheffield Forum. In 2008, the legend was kept alive by a tribal medicine man named Gerald R. Osborne, who also went by the name Red Elk. He claimed to have seen UFOs flying over the pit and suggested it was an underground UFO base. Now, this further fueled speculation about the hole's possible origins and function. In 2012, a Facebook poll conducted by the Daily Record asked whether people believed Mel's hole was real or not. The survey demonstrated that interest in the story had not diminished over time. Some individuals on Reddit even shared coordinates of possible locations and attempted to form a group to find it in 2018. The enduring appeal of Mel's hole is reflected in its continued presence in popular culture. It was featured in a podcast called Astounding Legends in May 2022, and later in an article on grunge. In November of the same year, Mel's hole seems to be an urban legend with no end in sight. In many cases, the unexplained nature of a phenomenon can actually be a driving force behind scientific inquiry and investigation. In fact, Mel's hole has captured the imagination of many researchers and paranormal enthusiasts over the years who've attempted to uncover the truth behind its mysteries. Some have suggested that the hole could be an entrance to an underground civilization or a gateway to another dimension entirely. Others have speculated that the strange occurrences of Mel's hole may be related to the concept of ley lines, which are thought to be invisible energy pathways that crisscross the Earth. According to this theory, Mel's hole could be located at a particularly powerful intersection of these lines, which could explain its unusual properties despite these many theories and speculations surrounding Mel's hole. However, the truth remains elusive, with no concrete evidence to support any of the various explanations put forth over the years. It's difficult to say for certain what the hole is or what might be causing its strange effects. Nevertheless, the enduring mystery of Mel's hole continues to capture the imagination of people all over the world, and the legend shows no signs of fading anytime soon, whether it's a product of natural phenomenon, a government conspiracy, or something far more mysterious. Mel's hole remains one of the most intriguing unsolved mysteries of our time. Of course, some skeptics may dismiss the whole thing as nothing more than a tall tale fabricated by Mel Waters or others in an attempt to gain attention or notoriety. But for those who have experienced the strange effects of the hole firsthand, the reality of its existence is undeniable. Perhaps one day new evidence will emerge that sheds light on the true nature of Mel's hole and the phenomenon that occurred within it. Until then, however, the mystery remains unsolved, and Mel's hole remains a captivating enigma, beckoning to those who seek to understand the mysteries of our world and beyond. So that's all we got for this video. What are your thoughts on the mystery of Mel's hole? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed watching this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos. And we'll be back to you soon with yet another amazing video. Until then, goodbye and peace.